The 2025 NFL Draft is in the books, which means it's time for our Bengals class superlatives. Let's dive into it right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller. Catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk Weekly on FanDuel Sports Network, and we are brought to you by Garage Beer. Grab a Garage Beer today, and it is certainly Garage Beer Lime weather, Andrew. But speaking of the weather, it's changing. And, the Bengals roster is changing. It looks a lot different following the 6 picks that they added in the 2025 NFL Draft. And whether it's Shemar Stewart, Demetrius Knight Jr., Dylan Fairchild, Barrett Carter, Jalen Rivers, Taj Brooks, we're going to break them all down now because it is Superlative Day here on Enter the Jungle. And let's start here, Andrew, because we haven't heard from you when it comes to the NFL Draft. So before we get to this is the best pick, this is the worst pick, this is the riskiest one, the best value, give me your thoughts, your summary as you were editing all of our videos on Cincinnati Bengals Talk all weekend long. So you were following along as closely as anyone. I'm going to call you Andrew Tobin. But what do you got from an overall thought standpoint on the Bengals draft class?
Well, my very first thought, which continued throughout the entire draft, was it's really weird selecting 60% of the picks that you had from the year prior. It is just weird when everyone feels like it has more and more weight on it. Never mind all the other reasons why it has a lot of weight to it. But yes, and I couldn't help but also think, how many times have we talked time and time again how important this draft was, how important this offseason was, and it never felt fulfilling. I don't know that it ever could have felt fulfilling after what they did in free agency, but we're going to talk about it here. I do like really all of these picks for different reasons, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Likes them all. Straight A's across the board. No, we're not getting your grades. I did give grades earlier this week on Cincinnati Bengals Talk on Monday. So if you missed that, check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. But let's dive in here with our NFL draft superlatives. The Bengals 2025 draft is in the books. Let's start with best pick. They had 6 of them. You're right. They didn't have 10 like last year. Who wins the Andrew Fox Miller Best Pick Award?
Well, let's preface this by pointing out that last year, my pick and your pick, 2024, for what we felt was the best selection of that draft, we both picked Amarius Mims. Mims was unquestionably the best pick based on the 2024 draft classes, their first season. So let's just throw that out there. Okay.
So track record strong.
Exactly. Now, as far as the best pick, so it's a difficult one for this particular draft. I don't know that there was one that was just like a home run to me. All of them have a lot of great traits, a lot of great qualities, so on and so forth. If I had to pick one, though, I'm going to say Dylan Fairchild, because to me, that's when the draft started to have a bit more of an identity for what I could see were needs and players that really fit the mold for what really what the Bengals were going to do for the remainder of the draft. Everything started to fit in a little more neat as they progressed from that point on. And once you take a guard, which was among the most important positions from where I'm sitting, this team needed, it was a bit of a sigh of relief. And then I felt like we were coasting. I felt like this draft started to get into a groove. So I'm going to credit that to the Dylan Fairchild pick. Let's see his moves with Scott Peters. I'm never going to say the word glass eaters again. Too soon. But he would fit that mold.
Would he fit that mold? He's a wrestler, baby. He's a wrestler. I think he throws around class eaters and wins state championships. I may have Dylan Fairchild on my list at some point. It's certainly not going to be best pick. The best pick, much like last year, is the physical freak that is so dominant that even though there might be a red flag or two or a question or two, is coming to Cincinnati. It's Shemar Stewart. And some people can't wrap their head around it because he had 4.5 sacks in college. He's going to have that as a rookie. Boom. There you go. You hear what I said. He's going to start for the Bengals. He's going to exceed that 4.5 sack mark as a rookie. He's going to be someone that does a little bit of everything for the Bengals from a move around, the defensive front standpoint. But he's going to see one-on-one And can he win one-on-one? For 2 years, Sam Hubbard hasn't been able to win one-on-one. When he could win one-on-one, guess what? Trey Hendrickson was opening things up, and Sam Hubbard was able to get after the passer and have 8 sacks and be around and be disruptive. That's what this guy's going to be because he's so physically gifted. I'm not saying he's as skilled as Sam Hubbard was when Hubbard was in his prime, but he's so physically gifted. 6'5", he's going to play 270 plus pounds. He's going to be explosive. And the thing that he did at Texas A&M that he's not going to have to do as much, really at all, actually. I'll take it back. At all. He's not going to have to play nose tackle. He's not going to have to play in the middle of the defense. They got a nose tackle in TJ Slayton. The Bengals have that big, beefy guy in the middle. And so you put him on the edge, you let him do his thing, you kick him inside at least a little bit on passing downs when you need that, because then you can get that NASCAR package of Joseph Osai and Miles Murphy and Trey Hendrickson on the field, and now you're really cooking with pass rush dudes. I believe this is a safe pick. It was their best pick. I'm really excited to see how Shemar Stewart develops, regardless of the college numbers. It doesn't matter. If Joe Burrow would have thrown for 5,000 yards at LSU, then came here and not been able to hit the broadside of a barn, guess what? It wouldn't have mattered that he had the Heisman or a national championship. And so I get it. There's a little projection there. I think the projection is going to go in his way. I think Shemar Stewart's a winner and is going to be someone that matters to this defense as a rookie. He's their best pick.
It's interesting you say that. I'm not going to give anything away, but I didn't want to pick a player for 2 of the categories that we're going to work our way down here. So I've got Stewart in another category. We'll see where that ends up.
I think I could guess where that is, but from best pick to worst pick, pressure is on now. Maybe this is where it is. I don't think it will be, but who's your worst pick?
My worst pick, Demetrius Knight. I like Demetrius Knight. I feel like I can't say that fast enough. I like him.
Yeah.
I think he'll improve the linebacker room. I'm glad he's on the Cincinnati Bengals. I wouldn't be shocked if he proves to be one of the better picks of this draft in years to come. I just don't love the approach and reaching for linebacker when you had an opportunity to secure someone reliable for the interior of your offensive line, or especially your defensive line. Like if the Bengals drafted Knight in the 3rd round, this might be my favorite pick of the draft. We only have 6 picks to work with here though, and unfortunately Demetrius Knight is the reach that carries some baggage of what Bengals passed on to get him.
It's by far the worst pick. You nailed it. It's by far the worst pick. And that doesn't mean that he can't be a good player. He's going to start for the Bengals this year. So there you go. And he's a really nice guy, and he's a great locker room addition, and it's still the worst pick. And the 2 things are, they don't contradict themselves, even though people outside looking in are going to say, James, you just contradicted yourself. No, I didn't. There's a draft process, and then there's all right, this is what he brings to your team. Like today, these 6 guys are in the building. So the coaches have to figure out how to use them best. Al Golden said, oh yeah, Demetrius Knight fits. But the reason why, and I gave this pick a D, it's by far the worst pick when I gave my grades, is because of what it cost them. It cost them the 3rd best guard in the draft in Tate Ratledge, maybe even higher than that. And I know they were in on Tate Ratledge. And so you deviate from that to address a need that you probably should have just addressed. I think what they were is they were so worried about linebacker in a shallow linebacker class that they knew they needed to address it. So much so that they had Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter, who they ended up getting in the 4th round because they double dipped at linebacker. They had both of those guys in the mix in the 2nd round. Well, the NFL told you Barrett Carter was a 4th rounder, and that same NFL, that same consensus that I'm using had Demetrius Knight, as a 3rd round pick. Not only did they not trade down, they took a guy to address a need. They deviated from consensus by a decent amount, and they passed on a guard that was a surefire no-brainer if he got the 49. And in that set the snowball effect where then they had to take a guard in round 3, even though I know Dylan Fairchild wasn't the top player on their board in round 3. And you know what I say. What's the phrase? You draft players, not positions. Well, because you felt like you had a need at linebacker, you had to address that need in a shallow class in round 2. Now you have to address a need with a guard that wasn't the top player, and that's tough. Even if I like Dylan Fairchild, even if I like Demetrius Knight, that is not what I subscribe to from a draft standpoint. Day 2 was rough for the Cincinnati Bengals. And the worst pick, as much as I like him, because I like him, I'm going to interview him. You're going to see me interview him here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk, probably Enter the Jungle. Like all of those things are going to happen. And I expect to have a good relationship with Demetrius. It has nothing to do with him as a player. It has to do with the Bengals draft process, what they did and didn't do this offseason that put them in that position where Al Golden's like, please give me a linebacker with Jermaine Pratt out the door. I just can't get behind it. It's the worst pick of the draft, Andrew.
100%. You just said, I hope I have a good relationship with him. I'm going to be rooting for the dude. Like, I love his story. I hope he tears it up. Again, hope he's the best pick of this draft. Can't ignore that process. That just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's just, you don't want to pass up high-end guards for a need that you should have addressed in free agency. But we have more superlatives to get to, so let's get to them. Who's the riskiest pick of the 2025 Bengals draft class? What about the best value? We'll get to those coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien. And let's dive into our draft superlatives. Riskiest pick in best value. Andrew, I'm going to start. You've had the honors the first two. Riskiest pick. Who was the riskiest? And honestly, I don't think any of these picks are risky. I think Shemar Stewart has a pretty high floor. I think Demetrius Knight is going to be a solid starter. Taj Brooks, Jalen River, like they're all going to contribute as rookies. But the riskiest pick is the same one that is the worst pick because of the snowball effect, because of what it had on the process. Demetrius Knight, it's risky taking a linebacker 49th overall when you had a top guard available, because then it cost you essentially a top safety in round 3 with Kevin Winston Jr. following all the way to round 3. And then it sets the snowball effect. So the riskiest pick is the one that kind of set the tone for your draft where you're kind of chasing a bit. And you ended up getting a linebacker that you really liked anyway in round 4. And so he better deliver. Demetrius Knight Jr. better be awesome. And I love his story, and we're going to get to it coming up. But I do think it's the riskiest because of the way it impacted the rest of the draft.
First of all, I'm not going to lie. Demetrius Knight would have probably been tied for riskiest pick, perhaps the riskiest pick. But unlike you, and unlike the Bengals with their linebackers, I'm not going to double dip.
Yeah, here we go. Go ahead and say who I know you're going to say. Go ahead.
I'm going to say last season, by the way, my choice for riskiest pick was Eric All Jr. Yours, James, was McKinley Jackson. I have no point to that. I just want to bring that up. Now, this year, I think it's Shemar Stewart.
It should have been Jermaine Burton. We both should have said Jermaine Burton.
Oh, I got more on that one. That's not a knock on Stewart, the player, much like we're saying with Demetrius Knight. Like I said, last season, I chose Eric All as the riskiest pick, but I loved the potential. So it's not so much that I don't like the player. It's more about the Bengals putting their faith in their coaching staff to draft and develop a player at a position that needs production immediately. You could say Demetrius Knight is the riskiest pick because of the perceived reach on him, because of what they pass on in the second round to get him. But picking Stewart was literally and figuratively what started the entire process we witnessed over the weekend. They need production immediately when it comes to pressuring opposing quarterbacks. And they passed on their interior of their defensive line during the draft entirely. And they didn't take any other defensive end. So Demetrius Knight is a very risky pick, but you draft Barrett Carter, and now your linebacker group appears better than they were in 2024. I don't know that I can say the same about the defensive line yet. And you used a premium pick to roll the dice and hope Stewart changes that.
Shemar Stewart today is starting for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Sure.
If they played. And I think a lot of people are like, he's risky. Is he? Is he that risky? Like, what's his floor? His floor to me is just a solid athletic freak. Like, he might be Jadeveon Clowney and not even get close to his ceiling. Like, really good against the run, gives you some pass rush juice, but not as much as you wanted. Some sack production, but he's never going to be a 15-sack guy. Like, I don't know. I think he's pretty safe. And I get it.
You're banking a lot on Al Golden. I'm just saying, hopefully he gets it all together.
No
Mentally,
doubt.
He's got it figured out. We'll be all right. I'm rooting for him. I think he'll be good, but I still think he's the riskiest pick because of all the implications.
Yeah, and honestly, that it's a tough one because this draft wasn't risky. I feel like they played it safe with everybody.
Correct.
Like, there's no Jermaine Burton in this draft.
No.
There's no guy that you're like, he's got a huge injury history, Eric All. There is the reach, which that's on brand for me. McKinley Jackson was the reach last year. Demetrius Knight Jr. was the reach this year, and I picked them both to be riskiest pick. You could tell where my process lies for sure. So that is called consistency, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm glad you went back and checked because honestly, I didn't. So one more superlative here for the 2025 Bengals draft class. Best value. I think we may both agree here. I don't think anyone that could really debate it. Day 3 is where they got their best value. And Jalen Rivers, to me, I gave him an A+ when I gave out grades this week. Just no brainer. 6'6", 319 pounds, 35-inch arms, has the ability to play both guard spots, both tackle spots. Great pass protector. I love it. I would have taken him in round 4 easily. And to get him in Fairchild, I do think that the Bengals pass blocking has improved a ton over the past week.
I agree with you. Now, I should also mention, we talked about Jermaine Burton. That was your pick for best value last year. Last season, mine was Matt Lee. Just saying. Anyway, Jalen Rivers. And I understand the thought process, by the way, with Burton at the time. Sure.
No doubt.
And
if he
it
showed
could still
up,
pay off. Who knows? Maybe he'll get it together.
Could still pay off. Matt Lee could still pay off too. So, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like you said it all. Bottom line, it's a versatile offensive lineman that might be he might not be starting right away, but certainly has an opportunity to see a significant amount of playing time his rookie season. Like if the versatility with Rivers, I guess you could even argue that I consider Dylan Fairchild for value just because I think he has the best odds of making an impact as a starter on this roster. But just for that reason alone. But really, Rivers was my pick just because tackle, guard, even center. Like that's something that could earn Rivers many years on this roster, at least as a reliable depth piece, but also very possibly a starting role in the future.
Relax there. We'll get to impact. That's a different show. We'll get to impact. These are superlatives. These are superlatives. Settle down there, buddy. Relax. Yeah. And from superlatives, where, let's be honest, we said that the worst pick was Demetrius Knight Jr. He's also possibly the feel-good story of this draft. We'll hear from Knight coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien. And Andrew, I've been critical of the Bengals process that led to Demetrius Knight Jr. being the 49th overall pick. But no one can doubt his story, how he handles himself, the character. I've had some people within league circles reach out to me saying, man, the Bengals got one with that guy. And so I think he's just really well liked. And I think everyone's going to like him after they hear this. Demetrius Knight Jr. in the Bengals locker room talking about his days. This was 2 years ago when he was at Charlotte playing linebacker with a young daughter and wife, door dashing to make sure that they had enough money.
My wife and I had our first baby in Charlotte. She was only a couple months old. Pretty much the entire year we were at Charlotte. That we were door dashing, and even after games, we're making sure that my daughter has formula because surprisingly formula is expensive. I found that out very quickly, but I wasn't gonna go back home until I made sure that she had milk to drink, and we had something that we could eat until I could get back into the facility.
What do you think your reaction would have been then if we had told you you're going to be the 49th pick in the 2025 NFL draft?
I probably would have laughed or cried, either way at the time, just because at that time my head's just spinning, and I'm trying to go to classes. I'm trying to walk to classes, then I'm trying to walk to practice afterwards, then I'm trying to walk home afterwards, and if we needed it, I'm trying to DoorDash for a couple hours afterwards as well. So, and then also trying to play college football on Saturday as well, and just repeating the process. But it was something I'll never forget, and something that definitely makes you humble throughout the entire process.
It's just a heck of a story, Andrew, and the fact that he did that after games and after losses, I can't imagine. I can't imagine having to reset like that and do that at that level. It's just, it shows his maturity, and it again shows how safe of a pick he is, because I think he's going to do all of the right things day in and day out.
Yeah, it's in line with one of the big takeaways we had from the 2024 draft was character. It continues with this, and I think that Demetrius Knight is sort of the main person that is going to be a reflection of the character of this entire draft class. So I'm rooting for him, like I said.
Yeah, this feels like the 2020 draft where we're talking about captains and just high-end individuals. Last year, you're right, it felt character was a topic, but it was the other way. It was like they're rolling the dice. This is the risky draft. Well, this is the riskless draft is how I would bill it. Up next, can't do a show without talking about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, hi, I'm Joe, meets Shemar Stewart. We'll discuss it coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox-Miller. I'm James Rapien. Catch us every single Tuesday at 8 Eastern on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk. And let's dive into Joe Burrow. He met Bengals defensive end, their first round pick, 17th overall, Shemar Stewart, in the Bengals locker room on Friday. He was drinking a little kombucha. I know people saw that brown bottle. They were like, Joe's popping bottles on a Friday. It's like, nah, drinking a little kombucha. But this is just like the most obvious Joe Burrow interaction ever. Hey, I'm Joe. Go get some sacks. Like, congratulations. Go get some sacks. I just love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah, I'd be thinking too. Hey, if you're not going to get me any protection, better get some sacks. Just saying.
Do you think that Joe was aware of the 4.5 sacks in college, and that's why he made that comment?
Oh, no. And even if he was, I don't know if he would have thought that quickly about it. I don't know.
It's a fun one to think about. I've thought about that. Like, man, I wonder. I mean, because Shemar Stewart had 39 pressures last year, and Joe Burrow gets pressured all the time. He knows how impossible it is to deal with that if you're pressured on every single play, and he's the best in the NFL at doing it. But lordy, was that funny. Also, I thought it was worth noting, and we posted this video on the channel, but Dylan Fairchild already got a text from Joe Burrow when Joe reaches out for the first time.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
He did. Yes, sir.
How'd that go? Was it text, I assume?
Yeah. Yep. He texted me. It was awesome. Yeah. He just let me know if I need anything to let him know that he's excited to work.
So Joe locked in on the guys that are going to be protecting him and the guys that are going to be sacking opposing quarterbacks. We're going to have a ton for you all off season long. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, Cincinnati Bengals Talk. And for Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching.